Joining me now on the Notre Dame Day video hotline is Patrick Vassel. He's the Associate Director for Hamilton, an American musical. And if you don't know by now, it is the hottest show and the most impossible ticket on Broadway. It's sold out for the foreseeable future. Tickets on the secondary market will cost you as much as a Notre Dame football game when USC comes to town, and they're both in the top 10. Patrick, thanks for joining us tonight. Before we get started, let's take a look at a short trailer from the show.
Great.
Just like my country, I'm young, strappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. We gonna rise up, time to take a shot. We gonna rise up, time to take a shot. We gonna rise up, it's time to take a shot. Rise up, it's time to take a shot. Rise up, it's time to take a shot. Rise up, take a shot, shot. Hey, yo, it's time to take a shot, time to take a shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am not throwing away my shot. I am Alexander Hamilton. Just you wait. I am not throwing away my shot.
Yep. Well, as promised, we are back with Patrick Vassel. He is the Associate Director of Hamilton, an American musical. Hamilton had a big week last week. It won a Pulitzer, and it also kept Alexander Hamilton on the $10 bill, Patrick. So the question I want to know is, what is it like to work on the hottest show on Broadway?
It's an incredible experience. As you mentioned, this was an exciting week for us. But the truth is that there's been so many, it's hard to keep track. From the president coming to see us last summer to the Grammy Awards broadcast, and obviously this past week.
Yeah,
and probably
and you gave this wonderful tribute to Prince, played Let's Go Crazy after one of your shows. For those of us who don't know, explain to me what an associate director does.
Sure. So during rehearsals, I'm essentially the right-hand man to the director, Tommy Kail. And as we get into tech and previews, that job becomes a lot of dividing and conquering. A musical is a big operation. So from 24 performers on stage to every design department, choreography, stage management, essentially every day getting in with Tommy Kail, the director, and figuring out who needs to talk to who is a lot of what we do.
Now, you've had what some might consider an unconventional path to Broadway, but this makes perfect sense to me because you were a political science major, so of course you're working on Hamilton. But how did you end up on Broadway?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone on Broadway has a different path. For me, I grew up performing, so I did theater while I was at Notre Dame. I was lucky enough to be in a lot of FTT classes, so even though I was a political science major, I was still very close with the FTT faculty, and that's where I started directing, was when I was at Notre Dame. And moved to New York and actually went into education. I did Teach for America and taught for several years at a K-8 school here in Brooklyn before I realized that I really missed theater and needed that back in my life. And so began directing here in New York City, and eventually was connected to Tommy Kail, and we had a chance to work on a show before Hamilton, and when the workshop for Hamilton came together a couple years ago, he gave me a call.
Connections are everything, and I understand that you've been helping current students and recent alums make that transition from South Bend to New York. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's been an amazing thing that the show has, many amazing things that the show has provided me, but one of them is that actually right before we went into rehearsals for the off-Broadway production of Hamilton, the FTT department brought me back to direct a production of 6 characters in search of an author on campus. And so we closed that show, and then I came back to New York, and we started rehearsals for Hamilton. So all the students that were in that show have, they've either graduated and come to New York, or they've come through New York on their travels. And so it's been great to stay in touch and to do whatever I can to really be connected to anyone that's at Notre Dame that might want to work on Broadway in the future.
Well, Patrick, thanks for all you do for Notre Dame, and I have to let you in on a little secret. At NBC Nightly News, every morning we go to the Hamilton Lottery and try to win tickets, and so far we're really big losers.
Keep trying, keep trying.
We never give up.